Welcome everyone to our first episode of this podcast. We are the BCS Podcast. We're primarily Pittsburgh sports. And why don't you guys introduce yourselves first before we get started?
Well, I'm Peyton
All right.
Celesti.
Oh, you want to
Nate, you want to go first?
go?
Nate's jumping the gun.
I thought you were talking, but then I didn't know if you were talking about. Yeah, I
You,
can go
you
first.
first.
All right. I'm Nathan. I go to Point Park, like these gentlemen here, these great gentlemen. I am first and foremost a Pirates fan. I love Pitt, Pittsburgh sports, everything. I also like the A's here, which we'll get into a little bit. That disastrous series for the Pirates, but yeah, just really pumped up for this podcast.
Yeah, hi, I'm Peyton Celesti, aka Pirate Peyton. Point Park class of 2027 with Nathan Shivens and Jake Bell. We're all sports communication majors. And we've been talking about doing this podcast for a while because the three of us, every time we get together, we just talk and talk and talk and talk about sports. Like this could be a podcast episode. And now that school's finally out, we're finally doing this. And we're just so excited to get this started and see where this goes. And we have a lot to talk about today. So let's get into it.
Oh, for
Jake,
sure.
we got to introduce Jake, though.
Oh,
Jake's the
yeah.
one who knew how to figure out Zoom.
All right, I'm Jake Bell. Obviously, like you guys said, Point Park student, and we're all Pirates, Pitt, Steelers, everything. So it's gonna be fun. So that's pretty much all I have to introduce myself. And I guess we can just start with the Pirates, right? It's baseball season. We're underway. So I'm not gonna ask anything, just you guys just your opinions recently about what's been going on. We'll just start with that.
Peyton, you start.
Where do we begin? Where do we begin? Like, so here's the thing. Like going into this season, I thought we would start slow. I really did. But I thought it would be not because of the offense. I thought it would be because of the pitching, because I feel like we didn't do enough in free agency with the pitching. But the pitching has been pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, but like the bullpen overall has been solid, other than the back end of the bullpen. And the starting pitching has been way better than expected without Paul Skeens. And I thought, well, okay, if that's the case, then we're going to really start out good. But the offense has been over the last 3 weeks now, has just been awful. And that's what worries me. It's like we're going to have reinforcements on the way for our pitching staff, but that's not really doing us any good. So I don't know what they're going to do. And the owner expects them to win this year. And Sherrington and Shelton, I feel like they have to be on the hot seat right now. If this season is worse than last year, like that's a big problem.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and there are so many culprits right now for this slow start. I mean, it's not like they're 4-28, right? They're 14-18, right? But with such a hot start like last year, you're thinking, maybe it's different, but it doesn't seem like that so far. Like you mentioned, Peyton, the offense has just been abysmal, complete non-competitive at bats. The pitching has been so much better than expected. I think all of us expected it to be definitely not a strength, and it's been for sure the strength of the team so far. And what you're getting at Jared Jones right now, I mean, right now, Mitch Keller is like the worst pitcher in our rotation.
He has the highest
which is
ERA
crazy
right
to
now.
think about.
Yeah.
With a rotation with Martin Perez. Yeah, it's crazy. Bailey Falter's been pretty good outside that start on Monday, but I mean, the offense just non-competitive at bats, highlighted by that Jack Sawinski in the first game, bases loaded, first inning on Monday. He takes a ball, I think, and then the next two pitches right down the middle strikes, and he swings at a ball in the dirt that never was a strike. It's just completely emblematic of how this offense is looking right now. It's really pathetic, and Andy Haynes needs to be gone for sure.
I mean, this is one of the worst stretches of offense in Pirates history. Like, and we've been bad for 30 years. But like this is one of the worst. Like I heard something like it was one of the worst 13 game stretches of I forget what it was, but like this is really bad. Like this is historically bad right now. You know, and I think I don't know. And I like you said about the pitching, like Mitch Keller's been bad. I mean, he hasn't been horrible, but he hasn't been good. And yet our pitching staff's been pretty good. And the thing with Mitch Keller is like, you know, the Pirates have a one size fits all approach with these pitchers. Like they're trying to turn every young pitcher they have into a crafty veteran. And what Keller had success with last year was his fastball, his four seamer, and his sinker. And now you see him incorporating his cutter and these off-speed pitches way too much. And that's where he's getting hit. But when he just attacks the zone with those fastballs, he's usually pretty good. But like they're trying to turn him into like a 6-pitch pitcher, but he's truly a power pitcher. Now he may not strike out a ton, but he's going to get weak contact off of his power pitches, which are his fastballs. And for whatever reason, they're trying to change what we paid him to be. And I don't understand that. That cutter is like one of the worst pitches in baseball right now. I heard that going into this last start, he had a 48% hard hit rate, which was like the worst of his career.
Wow.
That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, but the good thing about Mitch Keller is that like, even though we did sign him to a pretty nice extension, but the thing is we're paying him, fortunately, as like your third best starter. Obviously, you want him to be better, right? We saw flashes of that last year. Him and Austin Hedges, I thought, made a pretty solid duo, even though, you know, now he's without Hedges, he's got to kind of adapt on his own with the newer catchers. But I think right now, like, as long as Mitch Keller improves, maybe he can sneak his ERA under 4. I know it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think if he does that, I think that's worth the money if he's striking out guys.
No, I agree. And he's had some good, like his last few starts haven't been bad, but it's like, I feel like he can be better. I just feel like he can be better, and the way he's approaching his the batters just doesn't make sense to me right now. That's all what I'm saying. I mean, speaking of catchers though, Henry Davis,
he's leaving
what
way
a
too many cutters.
disaster. What a disaster. I mean,
man.
And that pick is looking worse and worse right now because he's a catcher coming out of a major college program. And yet the Pirates hinted to us all this time that the guy is not a good defensive catcher. And he's been not that great. I'll give him credit for working up to being the starting catcher and being able to catch. But like you could see the holes. And we saw the other day with Quinn Priester that started that inning. He's just too anxious in everything he does. And his swing does not play in the major leagues right now. This team needs to make major roster moves starting before tomorrow's game. And I think Henry Davis being sent down is one of them for sure, because I think Grandal is ready to come up.
All right, so speaking of, you know, assuming Henry Davis is going to be sent down, right, you need his bat going, and I feel like being in AAA will benefit him. Whenever Grandal gets called back up after his rehab and everything in AAA, how do you guys think the catching duties are going to be split? Did Joey Bart earn his job as the starting catcher, or is Grandal good enough to where he's going to be a majority of the starting catcher? I guess we'll see, but what do you guys think about that?
Well, I don't think he deserves to be getting the majority of the starts at catcher, but I think that's what's going to happen. He was the prize signing of the catcher room, right? For what was it, 1 million or 2 million near the end? A big investment for our front office. And Bart's really struggled recently, like all the Pirates hitters. I just feel like they're going to give Grandal 2 out of every 3 starts probably, especially like as a lefty catcher. Is he a switch hitter?
I think he is.
Let's look that up.
I think he's a switch hitter, and I think they like that. And so
they love the switch hitters in Pittsburgh.
They love the switch hitters.
They love the switch hitters.
I mean, it probably should be more 50-50. Yeah.
And you know what the Pirates could be thinking is this could be like, it's hard to compare Grandal to him, but like this could be a poor man situation of the Russell Martin and Michael McHenry tandem. You got a catcher that's a veteran who's had previous success, and you know we were able to get him on a cheaper deal than he would have gotten maybe 2-3 years ago. And then we also have another catcher who we acquired from another team who's off to a good start with the bat. So I'm not gonna compare
I
them
mean,
to that.
Russell Martin,
But,
though, is no Yasmani Grandal.
oh no, for
Yasmani
sure.
Grandal is no Russell. Russell Martin was productive. And Grandal, the thing with Grandal is lately he's been a defensive liability. And I mean, he always hasn't been the strongest defensive catcher, but now he's older and he hasn't hit at all either. So they're hoping they can squeeze every last ounce out of this guy. But I don't know. I don't see it. I don't think he's going to be all that good. But yeah, I agree with Nate. Like, I think because Bart is coming off an injury and he's older, they're going to Grandal's older and coming off an injury. They're going to let Bart start a lot at first, but then like maybe a week or two in, Grandal start to, take over more of the catching duties. But I think it's whoever's going to hit the most. And Bart really started off hot. He's kind of cooled off, but so is the rest of the team. But for a while there, he was really one of our better hitters. I mean, he came out the first game, his first at bat was a home run. And obviously there's some talent there. He was a number 2 overall pick. So yeah, talk about high draft picks though that aren't turning out really good at catcher. Henry Davis, that's not looking good. And neither is obviously, and Joey Bart was a bust for the Giants. So I mean, Henry Davis, I don't really like his swing. I think we've talked about this before. Like, he's probably going to end up being a DH. But like when you draft a catcher 1-1, you don't expect him to eventually be your DH. So he better really figure out this hitting thing, or I mean, it's going to be bad. That's going to really look like a bad pick.
Well, assuming that there's going to be roster moves being made, I mean, obviously, like that's what's going to happen throughout a season, but especially at this point. Who are we going to call up next? I mean, you've got a guy I was jumping up and down for whenever we drafted him, and Nick Gonzalez, who's been tearing it up. And he's a guy that usually has a slow start to the minor league season, and he ends up picking it up. Now he's off to a fantastic start. Kind of seems like he's figured out minor league hitting. I would love to see him get more at bats. And you've also got a guy who's been tearing it up as well, and Jake Lamb, who's had previous success, not current the last couple of years, but he's definitely a guy like, what do you have to lose, and see what you can do again at the MLB level. So who do you guys think, like, what do you guys think is going to happen with roster moves, sending guys up and down and stuff like that?
Well, here's what I would like to see. I would like to see, I know Nick Gonzalez has been hot, but I'm not, like, I've seen Nick Gonzalez hit and I've seen his swing. I'm not the biggest Nick Gonzalez fan. I think if we bring him up, he may bring a jolt to the team for a little bit, but over a long period of time, I think he's going to go down as another Pirates first round bust, unfortunately, but he has been hitting well in AAA. I mean, he's going to get another chance. He's going to get another chance for sure. And that may be starting tomorrow. But I'm not the biggest Nick Gonzalez fan. The two guys I really want to see up here are, number one is Liover Peguero, because I really think he's a real deal. And when he was up here last year, the stats aren't mind blowing, but in 60 games, he had 7 homers, 26 RBIs. Like, the guy is going to be a starting second baseman in the league. I really believe that. And I think if it wasn't for Jared Triolo, he would have been up here already. That was one of the surprise moves of the offseason, was the fact that Triolo was put on the team over Peguero, him and Williams. And I don't want to see Triolo go down, because I know Triolo, he hasn't had the best stats, but he has such a good glove, and he does get on base, and I really like his swing. I want to see more of Triolo. I want to see Peguero up here, and I want to see a guy I think could really, really help us right now is Ji-Hwan Bae, because he's a guy you can put at the top of the order. He can steal bases. He can play at pretty much any position, middle infield, center field, and he's just fast. We need to get guys on base, and we need to get the guys moving on the bases. Like, if we're going to have trouble slugging, we have to get guys on base, and we have to steal more. I mean, the Pirates never steal bags, never. And when you're a small market team that isn't going to hit a lot of home runs, you need to have movement on the bases to find a ways to score more runs. And Ji-Hwan Bae would be a perfect guy that would fit that bill. I believe he's hitting like close to 400 in AAA right now.
Yeah,
so those are the two guys I really want to see.
Bae's been off to a hot start. He's been tearing it up. What do you think, Nate, as well?
Yeah, so I like Bay. I mean, I don't know with him because I mean he struggled so much hitting last year. I mean, I know all the rookies did, but like he does have that stolen base potential for sure. Someone I would like to see up actually, obviously sending Henry Davis down just to get some more AAA at bats, I think would be optimal. But someone kind of outside the box, just for like a jolt for this offense. I say if he has any more options left to send down Edward Olivares right now, he's just not providing anything right now. I mean, he had a hot start too, and he's hitting like 210 now. I would bring up Josh Palacios right now. I know,
I
he
forgot about
wasn't a
him.
great hitter, right? But he was clutch, and I feel like maybe he starts out really hot and maybe he tapers off or whatever. But I think just to get this offense going somehow, I think he would bring some energy to the clubhouse. I feel like there's no energy right now. I really liked him in big spots. I just think if you could bring him up, maybe he provides a little bit of a jolt to the offense right now. But yeah, I know they're killing it in AAA right now. All of them really hitting. Jake Lamb, I like Jake Lamb. He's proven he can do it a little bit at the major league level with Arizona, especially. I just think he's really limited. I think we know what we have with Jake Lamb from a major league perspective. Is he going to be
Yeah,
much
I'm
better
not a
than
huge
Riley
Jake.
Tellez? Probably not. He might be a little bit marginally better. He might be better defensively, probably. I mean, Tellez hasn't been great defensively for sure. And Tellez, I mean, the problem with him right now is I expect him not to hit very well average wise, but he's providing no power. He has 1 home run so far. If there was anything you could get out of him, it would be, that potential to hit over 30 home runs. Maybe he wouldn't do it, but the potential to get some home runs for a team that really hasn't been able to hit the long ball at all this year and in years past for sure. But he hasn't provided that. I mean, you could bring him up for sure, but I just don't know about him long term for sure. But yeah, I like G1 Bay for sure. Potentially as a stolen base, top of the lineup kind of hitter.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, a guy like Palacios would definitely be interesting. During the Athletics series, especially the last couple of games, we were getting guys on, we just couldn't score them. That was just the biggest thing. And Palacios is a guy who has proven he can get RBIs, right? He had what, 40 last year in his limited time?
Yeah,
Something like that. So
yeah.
like he's a guy that can bring these runners in. I mean, if you have a guy who has a higher average with guys on base or at least in scoring position, that's a huge plus, especially if you're at a period where you're kind of struggling in that regard. So that would definitely be an interesting thing for sure. He probably needs to get more at bats because he hasn't played every single game, at least from my knowledge in AAA so far. But if you get him rolling a little bit, I think that would definitely be an interesting scenario for us for sure.
Yeah, the thing is, like, it's going to be one of those 4 or 5 or 6 guys we've mentioned. Two of those guys are definitely going to be up. I feel like soon. If not, I feel like they need to make at least 2 roster moves tomorrow. And because we just need some new bodies, some new people in the lineup, just something to get something going. They need a spark, and that's why I feel like Bay. He's just a spark plug. He's one of those players. Like, I don't know if he's going to be the best hitter, but spark plug. You get him on base, steals bases, he makes great plays in the field. The big question is, who do you send down? That's the big question. And I know you said Olivares, but I'm going a different route. And I don't think they would do this. I'd like to see Jack Sawinski sent down. I mean, I feel like what he did last year was his ceiling. I don't think it gets any better than that. And he was cold often last year. And the guy, he's an all pull hitter. He's constantly rolling his hands, constantly striking out. And that's what this team doesn't need right now. It's not like he's providing a bunch of power right now. So I'd like to see him get sent down. And you said you want to see all of it sent down. I want to see more of Olivares. I think the problem with Olivares is he's not getting enough playing time because it's always Sawinski, Olivares, Joe. Like, these guys are constantly on the bench, especially Olivares. He's not getting enough playing time. I'd like to see him play every day for a week and see what happens, because we saw him. He was hot in the beginning of the year, but then it was like they constantly sat him. And I would like to see more of him, because that's a guy we traded for, and he had good numbers in Kansas City. But I have a feeling they're going to send down Triolo, and I hate to see that. But I think they're in love with Sawinski. Like they're going to keep putting him out there. But I think he could use some AAA at bats because Jack Sawinski went from AA to the major leagues. He never had AAA at bats. You guys remember that? So that's what I'd like to see sent down. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, with a guy like Sawinski, from what I was told, they changed his approach going into this season. And I'm not the hitting coach or anything, but he was never like he was a good prospect in the Frazier trade. He was never one of the top prospects in our system, maybe top 30 at a couple points, but he was never
Yeah.
he never touched top 10 status. So him having the season he did last year, at least you know what you have in him. I don't know if changing his approach is going to be necessary because I don't think he has that high of a ceiling to where if you do that, he's going to be a superstar. So to
No.
me, I just don't. I'll take him hitting 25, close to 30 homers if he's striking out a bit and still walking a ton. I'm fine with that. But I just don't know if changing his approach is 100% necessary because he's not going to be a 300 hitter. I'm just going to be blunt with that, and he knows that as well. So I don't know. I'm not the hitting coach, but that's just my point of view on that situation.
It's not necessarily, and that's it's not necessarily his approach. It's just his swing is just so pull heavy and just he doesn't keep his weight back. I don't know. I just feel like he could use some time out of the Pirates we just need guys who are going to get on base and hit higher average right now. We have too many guys who are hitting 170, and it's like we keep these guys in here because they have power, but if they're not hitting home runs, then what's the point? That's my thing, and I don't think the ceiling is that high with Sawinski. I don't think he's a real big part of the future here, unfortunately. I hate to say that because he's a really nice. I heard he's a really really nice person. I met his dad last year when I sang the anthem. Like super nice guy, super nice family, but I don't know. I'm just not buying it.
Yesterday in that game, Ross Stripling had 2 strikeouts. One of them was Cruz on a foul tip. Okay. The first one was Davis in his first at bat. He swung through at least 2 of those 90-mile-an-hour fastballs that Ross Stripling had. His swing really looks broken to me, and I don't know what adjustments can be made. I don't know how the AAA hitting coach is for the Pirates. I know the AA hitting coach was pretty good, but then
Any
of
hitting
course we had to
coach,
get rid of him.
the Pirates don't develop anybody. They don't. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is they don't develop. And the big part of why this offense is struggling, we expected O'Neal Cruz and Henry Davis to come in and be studs, and they've been not even average. They've been bad, horrific, and that's on Shelton and that's on the hitting coach. And Shelton needs to stop changing the lineup every day. This isn't 2020 where we're trying to find out who can play. You're supposed to know who can play. Get your lineup together and stick to one lineup. Like we had Kutch at the top of the lineup, and that was working really well. Why are we changing that? That's what I don't understand. It's a new lineup every single day. And Cruz was doing well when he was at the bottom of the lineup, and now they're putting him back at the top again. Can we please be consistent with something?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, right now the Pirates are in a position where they can succeed. You've kind of constructed this roster to where not only do we have a lot of we have a lot of guys with potential, but we have guys that are going to be here for a while. So you definitely want to see some consistency. So that's definitely a good point. And with Henry Davis, it's weird because like if you guys have ever watched batting practice this year, I mean Henry Davis just absolutely launches it. Like it's like seeing Aaron
Yeah.
Judge out there.
Power. He has
Yeah.
tremendous power.
Yeah,
That's never been
he's a guy that's just very I think he puts a lot of stress on himself. I think that's the biggest issue. Like you said, he gets a little anxious. I understand because he knows that he's carrying a lot of weight with him being the first overall pick. But I think before this is like I know little league stuff, but whenever you get up to the bat, you just gotta take a deep breath. Yeah, I mean, if you're just antsy like that, the ball is gonna go up and down once it reaches you. It's not gonna go in a straight line, at least visually. So, I mean, I'd like to see him, relax up there. I think he's very talented. I just think he needs to relax.
Yeah, Jake, I completely agree with you about Henry Davis. Like, and this goes for a lot of these guys that are struggling, a lot of these young hitters, and I would say specifically Henry Davis, O'Neal Cruz, and Jack Sawinski. It's not only that they have issues mechanically and with their pitch selection, it's what's up here. When you go up in the box, from experience from playing and from I know you play, Jake, is that you have to go up there with a clear mind. There has to be nothing going on in your brain, like nothing, if you're going to hit. And if you have if you're having these doubts and fears, and you're trying to like, okay, I need to take more pitches or I need to take less pitches, then you should go up there with the mindset of see the ball, hit the ball. And Henry Davis on both sides of the plate, hitting and defense, because he's a number 1 overall pick, and because he's so passionate, he cares so much about winning. And I do appreciate that about him. But because of that, that's a flaw in a way, because he's pressing way too much. You can just see it when he's out there. He's just trying too hard instead of just having fun and playing the game. And I think that's an issue for Sawinski and Cruz at the plate specifically. Like, they're just thinking about, and I think the Pirates are they're trying to figure out, like the hitting, Andy Hayes is trying to figure out, okay, do we want to be more passive or do we want to be more aggressive at the plate? And it's like, yes, you want to have an approach that way, but you don't want to put it in your head so much where they're constantly thinking, okay, I need to take more pitches or I need to take less pitches. No, if you like a pitch, hit it, go after it, give it a good swing and hit it. Don't just let it go by. But also, you're a major league hitter. You have to know the strike zone. You have to know, okay, it's a 2-0 count or it's a 3-0 count. I'm not going to swing at a ball that's, low and away. Even if it's on the corner for a strike, don't swing at that. There's a fine balance with that. But I think it's just it's just a mental thing with a lot of these hitters. And we need Shelton and Haynes. They have to do a better job of getting these guys to relax. But it's also on the players themselves. So I think that's a huge issue, is what's going on. 80% of the game is mental. These guys are talented enough, but it's all what's going on up here.
Yeah, no, Peyton, I agree. I mean, like you said, it's a mental game, and whenever you're truly locked in, the baseball looks like it's coming in a lot slower than 90 plus mile per hour, right? I mean, if you're truly locked in, it seems like you can do no wrong. And I think if you gain strength mentally, I think it will be a huge plus, like you said, especially with a guy like Henry Davis. But now that we've spoken about the Pirates, I think a huge topic to go next is the NFL draft, right? The Steelers made a lot of moves that solidified a lot of needs, in my opinion. So I'll get your guys' opinions. Peyton, you can start.
I mean, I think the Steelers. I mean, Omar Khan, the con artist, he did it again, man. Like this guy's a guru. Like, and I just love, and what I've seen this offseason with the Steelers, like, I don't think they're going to be like a great team or anything, but that's not what I'm most impressed with. It's not necessarily the players they've acquired, but it's just the Steeler way, I feel like, has evolved. Like with Kevin Colbert, it's starting to just become like, we're going to pick the guys that we like and we're going to stick with these guys and make excuses for them. And now it's just like, look, we're a family here in the Steelers organization, but we're not taking any bullshit. If you don't want to be here, then goodbye. Like, and we're going to take guys who want to be here. And I love that. I love just how it's Steeler way is evolving. And I feel like down the line, that's going to make this team a real contender. The quarterback room, I don't know what if it's going to be any good or not, but hey, at least we made changes. I feel like just for the first time in a long time, we haven't been afraid to make changes. And that's what I really like to see. Like, it's an evolving league. You have to evolve. And I love the draft. Back to the draft. Like, I think the fact that Fatanu fell to them at 20 is, I mean, great. And I feel like just their first 4 picks, they really nailed. And I think Peyton Wilson in the last round, the last pick of the second or third last pick of the third round was an absolute steal in terms of value. Like, all of their picks for the first 3 rounds were value picks. They got guys that probably should have been picked higher. Or I'm sorry, yeah, they should have been picked higher. Like Peyton Wilson, if it wasn't for his injury concern, like, he's a first or second round caliber player. Like, this guy's going to be a starting linebacker for us as long as he stays healthy. I think that was just such a great pick in terms of value.
Yeah, Peyton Wilson was it was a great pick. Obviously, there are the injury concerns. He's had several injuries earlier on in his career, kind of like Michael Penix Jr., which is the reason people thought he might fall a little bit farther in the draft because of those injuries that he had at Indiana. But Peyton Wilson was a beast when he played for NC State. He was just a crazy, and he fits the Steelers' mentality. He's super tough. Like you mentioned, Peyton, the draft was an ace. Getting Fashanu at 20 was a steal. Also, just attacking the offensive line, getting Zach Frazier from
Yes.
West Virginia. Although not a big West Virginia fan myself, he was a very good center for them. He did. I was seeing some of his draft, his film, some of his highlights. He did his best work against the University, unfortunately, but he was really good for West Virginia this year blocking. And Roman Wilson, I thought, was a really good pick at wide receiver.
Oh
I
yeah.
wasn't the biggest
Yeah.
fan of him, to be honest. I thought maybe he's a little shorter, but I think with the way the Steelers have developed wide receivers, that was a clear need, right? Offensive tackle was a clear need, center was a clear need, and corner was a clear need. And I think they addressed all those. I do think they still need to get a wide receiver. Now there have been some rumors, some reports in the past couple days about maybe a Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk, maybe one of those from the Niners. They seem unwilling to trade them. When they drafted Ricky Pearsall, I thought it was for sure they were going to be trading one of them. But I still think this, like Tyler Boyd would be a perfect fit. I feel like just a stabilizing wide receiver. It doesn't look like the Steelers are going to go in that direction. I think he was talking with the Titans yesterday or today, and the Chargers maybe, but he would have been a nice fit. But I do think if they can get another wide receiver to pair with Pickens, Roman Wilson, I think will be a nice three. Plus with Calvin Austin, I just think maybe a bigger wide receiver for the
Yes.
Steelers would be nice. But I think overall they aced the draft, and skill position wise, they're really set.
Oh,
What
for
I
sure.
love about Roman Wilson. Okay, go ahead, Jake. You go
Oh no,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say like I for sure like the first two picks of the draft, I thought they did what they needed to do. And I think Roman Wilson is extremely talented. I just hope he doesn't go down a juju path in terms of TikToks, which we'll see. We'll see how that all evolves.
Does he do
But
TikToks?
yeah, Roman Wilson's huge in TikTok right now.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah. So that's something to keep around, but I don't think it's going to affect him, hopefully. But I think Peyton Wilson, like you guys said, that's a steal. If I don't think his injury is going to be too concerning because he's young enough to where it's not going to affect his athleticism too much. So I definitely think that was a really good pick. But yeah, I mean with the quarterback situation, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we're finally getting these offensive linemen to block for a quarterback, but it's really interesting to see where our future is with that. I mean, Justin Fields not going to pick up his option because it's going to be $25 million. So there's no guarantee he's going to be on the roster in 2025. Russell Wilson, there's no guarantee either. So it'll be interesting for sure. But no, I agree with your guys' points for sure.
I think when we're talking about Roman Wilson, he is going to be the route runner that Deontay Johnson was, I think, right out of the gate. But he's going to be less diva. This is what I'm assuming. He's going to be less diva. He's going to be more team oriented. And he's going to care about blocking people. This guy is a
Oh
ferocious
yeah,
blocker. He's a Heinz
yeah.
Ward type of blocker. And I love that. But his route running is excellent. Now, he could develop into an outside receiver, but for this year, he's definitely going to be a slot receiver. And that's where I agree with Nate. Like, we definitely need to get a bigger receiver, whether that's in free agency, like to be on the outside with Pickens. Like, you got to have two. We only have one really outside receiver. That's Pickens. You have Wilson in the slot now. Now you need an outside receiver. And like Tyler Boyd, I don't think would be a great fit because he's really a slot receiver. So they need to get a big body outside receiver. And I think because Deontay Johnson developed into an outside receiver. So I'm saying Roman Wilson could definitely do that. But obviously, this is year one with him. So they need to go out and get, and I'm not saying it has to be through trade. Like, it could be one of these guys who are maybe not as highly rated. Like, a guy I would be interested in is like a DJ Shark. I know, like, he's kind of meh, but he had some productive years with the Jags. Like, he could line up on the outside. And I just feel like, and with the offensive line, like for the first time since 2019, 2020, 2020, that's where it started to deteriorate. Like this offensive line is set at all 5 positions. I feel comfortable with all 5 of the guys on the offensive line. I think that's huge. So there's no more excuses for the quarterbacks anymore. There's no more excuses. You have a competent offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. I know a lot of people were on him in Atlanta, but being an offensive coordinator and a head coach is a lot harder than just being an offensive coordinator. There are very few coaches who do that. Like there's the Andy Reid's, Sean McVay's, Sean Payton's of the world, right? And Arthur Smith was good in Tennessee, and he does what the Steelers like to do, which is run the ball. That's going to be our identity. We're not going to ask us to throw 40 times a game. And we have the 2 backs to do it. We have the offensive line. If Russ just can limit the turnovers, make 2 to 3 special plays a game, this is a team that's going to be able to compete. But that's the big question: is the quarterback room. What are we going to get out of that? And if it's a disaster, then it doesn't matter about the rest of the roster. And I think our roster is really great. Outside, we still need a slot corner and a big receiver. Those are our 2 biggest needs right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And going back on what you guys said about receivers, some that I heard that we were linked to were obviously Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. T. Higgins, which I think is very unlikely. We're not gonna make a trade with a
You wouldn't
division
trade him
rival.
to us.
Yeah. So,
Right.
but I think Cortland Sutton would be the biggest or the most likely possibility, just because I mean I know the Russell Wilson tenure didn't work out with the Broncos, but at least there's some familiarity there, and I don't think the price is gonna be too crazy for the Steelers not to pull the trigger. But also something that's been interesting, I saw a recent rumor that DK Metcalf is now linked as a possible trade possibility. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out for sure.
Here's what I will say. You don't trade a first-round pick. I don't think the Steelers should be desperate to get a star receiver because we don't know what our quarterback situation is. We don't know how good our quarterbacks are going to be. So if you give up a first-round pick for a receiver and that receiver isn't getting the ball, then what was the point? So to me, the most I'd give up is a 2nd and a 4th for a receiver. I would not give up a first-round pick. Ideally, I'd like to only give up 1 pick, and I'd be willing to give a 2nd, but I don't want to see a first-round pick go.
Yeah, I like the Cortland Sutton one. He obviously, like you mentioned, Jake, the familiarity with Russell Wilson. They had that nice connection in Buffalo last year for that crazy touchdown. I just remember that to get them that win.
Yeah.
But I like Cortland Sutton. He's a really underrated wide receiver, I feel like, just being with the Broncos, being with such futility at the quarterback position in Denver. I feel like that'd be a nice addition. I feel like you can get him for a 3rd or something like that. I feel like he wouldn't be it wouldn't cost you that much like a first. I definitely agree. We don't need to trade a first rounder for a star receiver, especially when we have a star receiver in George Pickens already. And this is more for not depth purposes, but to have a solid 2 to pair with Pickens. So I like Cortland Sutton for sure if that's what the Steelers are targeting. Obviously, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk would be awesome to pair with one of them to pair with George Pickens. But I think the skill, it's pull up or shut up for sure for the Steelers this year, especially at the skill positions. Obviously, like you mentioned, Peyton, on the offensive line, you have 5 starters who you actually have a ton of confidence in, right? For the first time since probably, 2019 and 2020 when Marquise Pouncey was, just about to retire. So, yeah, I like where we're at right now. Defensively, we're stacked as always. We will see how they gel and everything. But, yeah, Patrick Queen, that addition was huge for the linebacking core. And I think you have a lot of
Patrick Queen
depth
and Peyton
there
Wilson.
now. Yeah, with Cole Holcomb still coming back, right, from injury.
I believe Landon
Was a
Roberts is
nice
still with us,
depth
right?
piece, and he really shored up
Yes.
the linebacking core late in the year.
I'm worried about Cole. I think the reason they made that pick, though, I think Cole Holcomb, his career might be over. Like, that's how bad that injury was. I really hope not.
Brutal.
I think that's why they made that pick. Because they really only had a Landon Roberts and Mark Robinson. I don't think we might not see Holcomb. I hope that's not the case because I really liked Holcomb as a player. But It's unfortunate for sure. What do you guys think of Najee Harris's option being declined?
I'll have you go first, Nate.
Well, I think I'm all right with it for now. I feel like if you have to get rid of Najee Harris for cap purposes down the road, I would be upset because I really like Najee Harris. Obviously, he's a great dude and he's really performed recently. But if you have to go that route, especially with running backs, teams don't like paying for running backs. Uh, if you have to go that route with Jalen Warren and then somebody else, I would be all right with that, especially if it means shoring up some positions of need because there is a surplus there at the running back for the Steelers. They're sitting in a really good spot with Najee Harris, with Jalen Warren right now. I would love to see him stay, but I think, if he has a huge year, it would be really hard for the Steelers not to make a big attempt to re-sign him this next offseason and maybe during the season. But I think Najee likes it here, so maybe he would be, a little bit, he would take a little bit less money, but I don't really have a problem with it for now. Definitely with the Justin Fields option. That was just a ton of money, and you can always Justin Fields probably would like to come back. He probably doesn't want to go to another team at this stage in his career. He's just getting started really, and to be on a third
We'll see
team.
if we want him back.
Yeah, well, they were kicking the tires.
To be honest with you.
You see that earlier, Jalen Warren on Cam Hayward's podcast talking about the special teams coach, what's his name, Danny Smith, I think, potentially having Justin Fields return kicks.
That's ridiculous.
I know. I hope
ridiculous.
I hope that is just
It
talk.
can't be.
I hope that's not
That better be
real.
bullshit. Like that is ridiculous. Like you do not have a backup quarterback who you will need if Russ goes down or if Russ stinks. You don't have him returning kicks. I know that the punt returns are much safer now, but that doesn't matter. He could just tear something making a juke move. Like you don't risk your quarterback. I don't care how athletic he is. And we need to worry less about his athleticism and turn him into a passer because everyone jokes around that he's a running back, but that's how he is out there. Like, and that's my problem. He's Kenny Pickett in disguise. I said this on my podcast. He's Kenny Pickett. He can't read the field. He can't make key throws in the fourth quarter. He was one of the worst fourth quarter quarterbacks. You can't just run around. Like even Lamar Jackson, like he's turned overall into a good passer since he became a rookie. That's what's made him elite. Yeah, we know the athleticism's there and he can run, but you can't just be that as a quarterback in this league. That might have been a little off topic, but
plus with having Cordell Patterson, bringing him
you signed him for $6 million.
It's crazy to think that Justin Fields would. Yeah, he's going to be the returner. He's going to return the kicks and the punts. It's not going to be Justin Fields. I don't know why that was, that came out. I don't know why
that was probably a stupid thing to say, to be honest with you.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you guys. I mean, like you said, Cordell Patterson, he's a guy you bring in to return kicks and to be like almost a leader offensively. You don't want to use your backup quarterback for that, no matter if he has a future past 2024 with us or not. I mean, that's just not something you do, especially with a guy who probably hasn't returned kicks even at the college level, let alone the NFL level. So, yeah, I mean, definitely an interesting scenario, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm praying it's talk. We'll see, though.
I think the Najee Harris decline the option was smart, and I think a lot of people were surprised by that. But this is the Omar Khan era. Like back in Kevin Colbert's era, he might have signed Najee because we're all buddy with Najee. But look, the guy's overall been good, but he hasn't put one full season together where he's been like good for the most part of 16 games. He's been on and off. He hasn't really put a full season together. And when you have a guy like Jalen Warren, who at times last year made Najee look like a bum. Like I'm not even like Warren, his explosiveness and his toughness, like he made Najee look like a nobody. And he was an undrafted free agent. You have more years from him. Like I think there's a good chance Warren becomes the RB1 and Najee isn't here next year. I really think there's a chance. But I'm not dissing Najee. Like I think Najee's a decent running back, and a lot of teams would love to have him. But $7 million for a running back, that may not seem like a lot, but the market of running backs, as Nathan mentioned, has gone down because you can find these guys in the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. and undrafted in Jalen Warren's case. So $7 million, that $7 million can go to more important things than keeping Najee around with Jalen Warren. And who knows, maybe they will get it. If he really puts a good year together, I say let's bring him back. Let's pay him the money. But he's been inconsistent overall.
No, absolutely. I mean, and you don't want to give too much money to a running back, especially knowing how many Super Bowls have been won with low paying or running backs not making much money, I should say. So yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting. But with a lot of like moves with Steelers, there's been a lot of moves with Pitt football. Nate, I know there's something you want to touch about with Pitt, so I'll let you take the throne here.
Yeah, the big news kind of today, kind of a head scratcher in my opinion. Pitt and UCF agreeing to a home and home series, with Pitt hosting UCF at Acrisure Stadium in 2026 and then going to UCF in 2029. I mean, you know, I get I do appreciate Heather Lyke and Narduzzi wanting to play tough competition, but in the era of the expanded college football playoff, you don't want to have to play extra tough teams, in the non-conference. And UCF is going to be a problem. They are in a recruiting hotbed. We've seen how good they've been in the group of five. And it doesn't really make any sense. I would much rather prefer, especially in the ACC, in a conference that's really gettable right now, some quote unquote cupcake games, maybe some games against your Kent States, your Youngstowns, your Delawares, just like, I mean, Penn State does it, right? And they, talk about how they're such a successful program, and I don't doubt that, but I feel like Pitt could easily do that as well, and they could definitely compete for the ACC and be a perennial fringe college football playoff contender if they would avoid some of these. You're already playing West Virginia, right? We have West Virginia scheduled for years down the road. We scheduled with Notre Dame already. We scheduled with Wisconsin already. It just doesn't make any much sense to add to that kind of hard stretch in our non-conference, especially like, what if we move to the Big Ten, right, in 6 years, 5 years? What if we move even sooner to the Big 12? I don't know. It just, but I mean, I like it. I like good games in the non-conference, right? Nobody's going to complain about that, but I don't see it as anything but potentially hurting Pitt's, resume, and an extra loss that could weigh heavily come right December when we're deciding who could make it into the playoff.
The reason you add those games is because the ACC is becoming a joke. And like for me, for the next, until Pitt moves conferences, Pitt football's, I mean, going to be pretty much irrelevant. Like, I hate to say it, like it's going to become a 2-conference sport eventually. And we're seeing that already with all the teams moving. We're the only big, all the teams moving to different conferences. So you have the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10 right now. That's it. It's like really going to be interesting, especially the SEC and the Big 10. And obviously the expanded playoff gives Pitt a better chance. But like, you have to add, if you're going to make the, let's just say Pitt has a really good year and they're on the verge of being that 12th team in, isn't it 12-team playoff, right?
Yeah, right now,
you gotta have some strong non-conference wins, because Clemson's going to leave the ACC, Florida State's going to leave the ACC. Who else is in the ACC? Like, you have to schedule good out of strong non-conference games. And like all these teams that we've mentioned, West Virginia, UCF, if you're a good team, you should beat those teams. You should. But I don't love the direction Pitt football is going. I think, well, first of all, I'm not a huge Pat Narduzzi fan. And I think he's done a good job with recruiting overall. I think that's what's been his strength. But lately, it hasn't been anything special. And now this year you've lost a bunch of defensive players, and their defense was trash last year. So it sucks. Like, the college football is evolving, so we might be in the dark for a while until we get into the right conference. If that happens, hopefully.
Well, speaking of, the roster turnover, like you said, we're losing a bunch of guys on defense. Why don't we go into more of the transfer portal side of Pitt football? Who do you guys think is going to be like a huge departure for next season? Who do you guys think is going to be a key addition of guys we've brought in from the transfer portal. I'll let whoever goes first wants to go.
Yeah, go ahead, Nate. I'm not like, you know more about this than I do, honestly. So.
Yeah, well, obviously the big departures have happened for the most part recently. Obviously, Dayon Hayes leaving, saying he's committed to winning. He's committed to winning. He's all about winning this season, upcoming season. Decides to go to a 4-8 program because that makes complete sense. Um, Also, Samuel Okunlola, our star freshman from this past season, transferring to Colorado too. Those are just big losses, especially with the defense that already struggled last year. There's gonna need to be some freshmen and sophomores that really step up, that are really talented, like Elliot Donald and Johnson and all those guys for sure. But in terms of the big additions, there haven't been too many like splash additions, right? We got Eli Holstein, the quarterback, redshirt freshman from Alabama, who should be the quarterback 2 going into the season. We got a linebacker from Kansas State that I think could be serviceable for sure. He doesn't stand out. He's a 3-star coming out of high school, and he was a 3-star in the transfer portal. But we definitely need just some stabilizers, some veteran presence in the backfield. And obviously, safety, we're pretty set. I can't remember his name's eluding me right now, but our safety who transferred from Florida after
Donovan
before
McMillan.
last season. Yeah, Donovan McMillan, the local kid, he should be really good for safety, but their depth's a concern for sure in the safety department and corner after some of MJ Devonshire, Marquise Williams, AJ Woods getting drafted and then latching on with some NFL teams. So, and then offense, I don't know. We should be all right offensively for the most part. Nate Yarnell, he's the upside's not really there, but he'll be a serviceable quarterback, I feel like. And then running back Rodney Hammond. I don't know. I mean, the schedule is really favorable with Cal. I think we play SMU on the road. Like our road games are like at SMU, like at Virginia, I think. And then I think we host Clemson as our like hardest game. There's not too many really tough games in the ACC this year, but with the roster we have, I mean, 6-6 looks like inevitable for me, like as a step up in improvement. But I mean, I just think 6-6 it's not the ceiling. I think they could finish with 8 wins if everything goes right, but with the roster limitations, I just think that's where we're at.
Well, Pitt football, I mean, I see 8 wins as the only success, but with this team, I don't think they're going to win 8 games. I really don't. They're still very young. I mean, because you're right, like a lot of guys have left, not last year, but the year before, right? Like the guys left. A lot of the veteran seniors. Yeah, and they're very young on defense. I remember just a lot of like freshmen linebackers and corners. And Narduzzi, he always wants to play press on the outside. Like that, he's press man from what I remember. Like he never makes defensive adjustments. So, I don't know. But they don't have the hardest schedule. Their schedule is definitely easier. So the thing is that the quarterback situation, I don't know what to make of that. I mean, Nate Yarnell, I never really took him that seriously. I mean, he seems like a guy who protects the ball, but there's really nothing like he's not going to be a guy that's going to throw the ball down the field and do a whole lot. This Holstein kid was highly recruited, so I'd like to see what he can do. But other than that, I mean, Nate Yarnell's I guess that's what's going to happen, but I don't know. That doesn't really get me that excited. I hate this. I'm sorry to say, but
No, it's all good. Honestly, like you guys know, I'm a huge Yarnell guy. I love homegrown talent. But yeah, to me, like I feel like Pitt really wants to focus on winning as many games as they can because it's not like the NFL where you can use some years for development and you're willing to have a couple bad years to be able to build your team. You can't have that with college football. If you're not winning, you're not going to get the recruits that you want. So I feel like they feel Nate Yarnell gives them at least the best chance to win because they feel like he's ready to play now. I mean, he's like unfortunately he has been the best quarterback last year in terms of just overall production, even though he only played 2 games as a starter. But no, that's my understanding with it. And for guys that we brought in, I love P. Thompson, the guy we got from Ohio, the linebacker. We've we've missed Servassier Dennis big time in the inside linebacker department. And while he's not going to completely replace him, I think the combination of him and Brandon George should be good enough. And I feel like us stopping the run should be at least a little bit better. And Nate, like you said, Deion Hayes, I mean, that's such a shame, especially he was saying how he wanted to return. And then he says, this isn't a team that's going to win now. And like you said, I mean, Colorado, they went 4-8. And I know they're supposed to be better next year because you have another year of Shedeur Sanders. But overall, Colorado is just a huge roster turnover every single year. They bring in guys from the transfer portal. They have people leave. It's just a whole new roster every year. There's no chemistry to build on that. So there's no guarantee that you're going to see improvement if you just have a whole new team, right? So, and plus, Deion Hayes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say Deion Hayes already won an ACC championship with Pitt, so it's not like he hasn't experienced winning. So I don't know why you don't want to be a veteran presence at this point, playing for a team that knows that they can develop NFL guys or guys into the NFL. And Colorado hasn't really done that like Pitt has. So I don't understand that move. But it's his decision. All you have to do is respect it. I'll give it to you, Peyton.
I was just gonna say the thing is, if you're a young college athlete, Division I athlete, do you want to go to Pitt and play at Heinz Field where the stadium is going to be half empty and play for a meh coach with a bunch of young players and in a shitty division? Or do you want to go to Colorado, play with Deion Sanders? They're going to have packed out stadium or packed out games every home game. You have Shedeur Sanders, who's a heck of a talent. You have Travis Hunter, who's a heck of a talent. I mean, I'm not saying Colorado's going to be a great team, but it's a lot more exciting. It's a lot more. And where are they at? They're in the Big 12 now, right?
Yep.
Am I correct on that? So
yeah,
it's just a lot more exciting. And Pitt is just not that exciting of a program right now. We had our moment with Kenny Pickett, but after that, it's like back to what it is. I mean, what Pitt really needs to be an exciting program is, number one, they have to go to a new conference. And I don't think this would ever happen, but they should have their own stadium on campus. They really should, like closer to Oakland, because that's what keeps recruits away. It's like, I don't really want to play at Heinz Field where the stadium isn't half full for a lot of the games. So, but Pitt football does have a rich history, but kids aren't looking at that.
No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, unfortunately for Pitt, playing in an NFL stadium, as much as it has its benefits, it definitely has its downgrades with not being able to have as big of a crowd. And obviously, it's not on campus either, so you have to rely on bus rides, all this other stuff. You can't just walk from your dorm to the stadium. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. But we are close to the hour mark. We have about under 5 minutes left of this specific recording. Are you guys cool with playing a trivia game before we end?
I'd love
Let's
to.
do it.
All right,
I don't think I've ever done trivia.
All right, so I hope you enjoy this. So this game is called Was He a 4-Star Out of High School? So the rules are, I'm gonna name you a guy, and I'm gonna ask you if he was a 4-star recruit or a 3-star recruit out of high school. And if he's a 4-star recruit on just one recruiting site out of 24/7, Rivals, ESPN, and On3, they're a 4-star. So they don't have to be a 4-star on every single account. So
and how many sites? There's 24 sites.
There's 4 sites: 24/7,
Oh, 4.
Rivals,
Oh, okay.
ESPN, and On3. So it has to be from one of those 4.
Okay.
So and I'm gonna go Pitt football and Pitt basketball. So the first one, we got a guy that's transferred to a couple teams. Davis Bevel, was he a 4-star or was he a 3-star?
He was a 4-star.
All right, Peyton,
I'm pretty
let's
sure.
hear you.
Oh,
I think he's a 3-star.
3-star?
No, I think he was a 3-star. I know he went to Oklahoma.
Come on, Nate, lock it in. I gotta lock it in. I'm going 3.
He was fringe. I think he was a 3-star, but I think he was a high 3-star. I remember him being like a higher rated quarterback that we got. I should know this.
What is it? Is he 3 or 4?
Nate, do you have your answer locked in? Are you saying 3-star?
I I'll go 3. I'll go 3.
Well, you guys are both barely wrong. On Rivals, he was a 4-star recruit.
Oh, I wasn't.
So you guys are tied at 0-0. So the next guy we have is a guy who transferred to USC from basketball, became a first-round pick. That's Cameron Johnson. Is he a 4-star or was he a 3-star? We have 2.5 minutes
Wait,
left, by the way.
the Cameron Johnson from Ulsh, right?
He was the guy that
He went to Ulsh.
the high
He was
school.
a 4. He was
I
a
don't know if you
4-star.
guys knew that.
Nate, you think
I
is
think
a
it was
4-star?
I think-
4-star.
I'm going to go 4-star just because he made the NBA. I mean, I feel like there was 4-star.
Well, you guys are both.
His
Sorry, I was gonna say you guys are both wrong again. Unfortunately, he was a 3-star.
We suck.
It's okay.
Because that makes sense though, because Ulsh isn't producing 4-stars.
Yeah.
I should have
Was
guessed
his brother
that.
was Puff Johnson. Was Puff Johnson the 4-star?
Maybe. I don't remember.
I think
though.
his.
All right,
I think his
140. We
brother
gotta
might
go.
have-
So next
right,
we have.
One.
Alright.
We gotta determine a winner.
So next we have Mr. I guess he's like very unselfish, right? Daniel Carter. Is he a 4-star or a 3-star?
Hmm.
He was a D line, right?
Oh, geez.
He's a running
No,
back.
he's a
Well, he's
running
gonna be
back.
more of a fullback.
He's a running back.
But- We got him in the 2019 class, same as Bevel.
I'm gonna go 4-star here.
I'm just gonna get the opposite and say 3-star.
One of us got to be
At
right.
one period while he was
Right.
committed, he was a 4-star for 24/7, but he ended up going down to a 3-star and was not a 4-star in any other site. So Peyton, you got that one.
Oh.
All right.
Wow.
so
Less
next
than a minute.
Next we
more.
have
Oh,
next we have
gee.
2 guys for our basketball. The Diaz Graham twins. Are they a 3-star or a 4-star? They're both the same one. So
They suck.
Oh, they were 3 stars.
3-star.
I think so. Yeah, I would say 3-star too.
You guys are both incorrect. On 3, gave him a 4-star rating. Both of them.
Really?
Interesting, yeah. All right. Well, after the Diaz Graham twins, it looks like Peyton's the winner, 1-0. I'm a little disappointed in you guys.
Yeah, we definitely sucked. Yeah, it was bad.
Bad performance. Yeah, like I mentioned, the lights were brighter than expected.
Turn
Haters said I
off
couldn't
the
do it.
lights.
Turn off the lights. The haters said I
Turn off
couldn't do it.
Maybe
They
if
were
you
Shout
had
out Nick Shermano.
maybe if you had your
Shermito,
room
shout out-
dark with no lights on, you would have been able to answer those correctly.
Shout out Nick Shermito.
That is that's an amazing way to end this first episode.
That is amazing.
So no, I thought that
Braves.
went pretty well. We covered a lot about the Pirates and the Steelers. We went a little bit over Pitt, but is there anything else you guys want to say before we end this episode?
Follow Pirate Peyton on Twitter. I'm just Pirate Peyton on Twitter, and follow my podcast where it's just me on Spotify. And I don't know where we're putting this
Yeah,
podcast out, but we're
follow-
figuring that out. We don't have to put this
Follow
there, but
everybody, yeah.
we're figuring that out.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter also, or X, whatever you want to call it. I think my username's N Shivens. So go follow. I haven't been posting, but I'll probably start posting a little bit just as our podcast grows and we get more into it too. Like Peyton's been doing. He's been killing it right now.
No, for sure. We'll make sure all of our whatever social medias we want to include and everything we want to shout out, it'll be in the description below. So make sure to check that out if you like what we're saying. But other than that, that's it for our first episode. Thank you so much for watching. We are BCS Podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.